Hi everyone, this is Alan Rosinski of Metro Manhattan Office Space. Good afternoon. Most of my viewers know about the high retail and office space vacancy rates in New York City today. In that light, it may not be surprising that landlords are more open to finding new ways to ensure profitability in this challenging environment. Today, I want to talk to you about an unexpected strategic shift by one of New York's most prominent landlords and what it might mean for the future of commercial real estate as well as landmark buildings such as the iconic Empire State Building. Empire State Realty Trust, which owns and operates many prominent buildings here in New York City, including the Empire State Building, announced that it would acquire two residential apartment complexes in Manhattan, totaling 625 units. The price tag is $307 million, or about $500,000 per unit on average. At this time, ESRT did not disclose the location of these buildings. Now, Empire State Realty Trust is a type of corporation called a real estate investment trust, or REIT for short. Most REITs, including this one, are publicly traded, and anyone can purchase their shares through an appropriate broker. This may sound familiar to you if you've seen my last video, which discussed the incredible new observatory at 1 Vanderbilt in Midtown Manhattan. That building is owned and operated by SL Green, which is another good example of a major, well-run real estate investment trust in New York City. So what is so important about the Empire State Realty Trust's new residential acquisition? Typically, REITs focus on one asset class, such as commercial real estate, residential, or a few subclasses such as medical, scientific, senior housing, etc. It's very unusual for a REIT that's focused exclusively on commercial real estate to branch out into residential options. In fact, Empire State Realty Trust hasn't owned any multifamily properties since it went public in 2013. Anthony Malkin, the chairman of Empire State Realty Trust, stated that purchasing these two apartment buildings was, quote, an opportunity to add value through another asset class. This new residential addition to their portfolio may signify a fundamental shift in the market. We could see more landlords taking a similar interest in residential real estate to diversify and strengthen the long-term value of their assets. Empire State Realty Trust's purchase presents a tantalizing scenario. If this residential venture is profitable, will the company take steps to rezone some of its office space for apartments? In other words, how likely are we to see luxury condominium apartments for sale in buildings like the Empire State Building? It's been tried in the past. Back in 1991, the Empire State Building was owned by the colorful Japanese heiress Kiko Nakahara. She wanted the tower to be modernized and turned to an even more colorful figure in New York real estate, Donald Trump. Trump accepted a stake in the building and almost immediately sued everyone else so that he could convert it to luxury apartments. He wanted to force out the co-owners, Peter Malkin, father of the current Empire State Realty Trust CEO, and Leona Helmsley, known at the time as Queen of Mean because of her tyrannical approach to life and business. It was a wild conflict of huge New York personalities. In the end, a judge blocked Trump's attempt to take full ownership of the Empire State Building. The rezoning to residential never happened. Within a decade, Nakahara gave up her stake in the tower. There is plenty of precedent in Manhattan when it comes to converting commercial space to residential. One of the biggest revitalizations Manhattan has seen occurred in the 1960s. Multiple light industrial warehouses below Houston Street became lofts for artists. The result is the Soho that we know today. For a high-profile example of an iconic New York office conversion, I would point out the Woolworth Building in Tribeca. In 2015, Alchemy Properties converted the top half of the landmark office building to apartments. They renovated the building, but maintained its pre-war charm. Designer Thierry Despont created a slate of contemporary luxe condos. He also lovingly restored Frank W. Woolworth's former private pool in all its marble glory. In today's climate, where office buildings still contend with high vacancies, we may see more commercial properties converted to apartments. Perhaps the Empire State Building will be one of them. Can you imagine how spectacular it would be to live in that iconic tower? Super tall apartment buildings like Central Park Tower, Steinway Tower on West 57th Street, and 432 Park Avenue are all the rage. Manhattan residents apparently don't mind an ear-popping elevator ride or a bit of vertigo in their home. I don't have any doubt that the ultra-wealthy would flock to purchase residences at the Empire State Building. One big question every landlord must ask when converting an office property into apartments is whether there will be rental units or condos. The Woolworth Building and Central Park Tower, for example, are condominium complexes. Residents own their spaces. There are no subsidized affordable rental units available in those buildings. Developers creating rental properties, on the other hand, face community pressure to include affordable apartments. New York also provides incredible tax incentives for properties with moderate income units and properties that abide by rent stabilization rules. In fact, I'm not sure a conversion from office to rental units is financially feasible without these tax breaks. With that being said, condos are generally more profitable for developers, and an Empire State Building apartment would be at the high end of the market. The opportunity to charge $3,000 to $4,000 per square foot might be too good for ESRT to pass up. Such a change would also be an opportunity to reimagine the Empire State Building's retail component. Right now, it contains good dining options like the Steak Grill and Bar and the Mexican street food option at Combi. In terms of shopping, the tower currently offers very little. Welcoming a fleet of high-earning residents would create a market for better dining and retail. Maybe ESRT could bring in a celebrity chef to open a new eatery or engage with chic clothing brands to take space near potential customers. Finally, shifting a large portion of a 102-story skyscraper in the heart of Midtown Manhattan to apartments would fundamentally alter the neighborhood. Right now, Midtown is mostly a business district. Empire State residences would nudge it closer to a modern working and living community. This shift would likely also affect commercial rents. Reducing the supply of office space can help result in higher commercial rents. We saw this happen in Lower Manhattan after the dot-com bubble burst in the early 2000s. Property developers were left with vacant offices and converted many to apartments. The result was that downtown's financial district became the fastest growing residential neighborhood in Manhattan. With excess office inventory because of COVID lockdowns, something similar could happen in Midtown. If it does, commercial rents in the area will rebound much quicker than anticipated, but that's pure speculation. For now, we will need to see how ESRT's current acquisition pays off. In addition to the iconic 34th Street Tower, Empire State Realty Trust owns many other commercial properties in New York City. Their portfolio includes One Grand Central Place, a lovely 55-story neo-Gothic building across the street from the New York Public Library on 42nd Street. They also lease retail space around the city, notably in Union Square. Most of ESRT's assets are located in Manhattan. However, they also manage buildings in Westchester and Connecticut. Their portfolio's total square footage is around 10 million square feet. This new move into residential will diversify Empire State Realty Trust's portfolio. Most top landlords in New York City maintain a mix of commercial and residential assets. Many developers already combine office floors and apartments in new buildings, protecting landlords from market fluctuations in either sector. Residential properties in New York City are still a gamble. In recent times, landlords have found multifamily dwellings, any property with more than one unit, to be a somewhat risky investment. State-mandated tenant protections limited rent increases even before the pandemic. COVID-19 only made matters worse by creating a slew of new issues for landlords. State and local governments tightened regulations on how much landlords could charge residents of rental properties. A federal eviction ban removed the primary mechanism multifamily owners had to remove delinquent tenants. Still, this move by ESRT shows faith in the residential market when New York office vacancies remain high at 14%. Will this bet pay off? There is some reason to believe so. Malkin seems to have personal experience with residential investments. His family-controlled entity, Malkin Holdings, owns several thousand units, though not in New York City. Personally, I'm more interested in seeing if commercial landlords, including Empire State Realty Trust, will end up pursuing residential conversions of commercial space as a way to deal with lingering high vacancies. Only time will tell, but I'll be sure to bring you news as it occurs. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the topic of residential conversions and diversification for commercial landlords. Do you think apartments have a better upside right now than office space? Would you rent a high-end apartment at the Empire State Building? As always, thank you for watching, and please let me know what you think of this segment in the comments below. If you found this content interesting or helpful, I'd be happy if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @MetroManhattan. Until the next time.